Akamanto, the Toilet Demon. A malicious yokai who wears a red cloak that haunts public and school toilets, usually in an older or seldom used bathroom, often the fourth stall, as the number 4 is associated with death. The students in the stall will hear a strange voice.
Do you want red paper or blue paper?
Regardless of what the student's answer is, they will ultimately meet their demise. In other versions, the students who survive to tell the tale will fall terribly ill and die shortly after. Sometimes the consequences are worse than death, such as being dragged in the netherworld, never to be seen again.
Imagine if your job was to perform autopsies on different corpses, except you have a habit of talking to the corpses as if they were still alive, especially the corpse of a woman who drowned at the bottom of a lake. You start to feel a strange obsession towards her, leading you to put mascara and lipstick on her, and telling her, "I like you, you're the prettiest girl I've worked on." Thinking no one is watching, you even give her a kiss, before rolling her body into the storage area and closing the door. But as you're about to leave, you hear the door creaking open, and the woman crawls out. She walks towards you, seemingly resurrected after the kiss, and says, "I like you too, do you still think I'm beautiful? Now it's my turn." This short film is called Kissed, and it seemed like a dark and twisted version of Sleeping Beauty. Also, the actors did such a terrifyingly great job, especially the coroner, who I think needs a role as a horror movie villain. But let me know what you thought and follow for more.
Here are 3 new true crime documentaries streaming this month. Till Murder Do Us Part, Soaring vs. Haysom comes to Netflix on the 1st. It's about Jens Soaring, who was convicted of murdering his girlfriend's parents, and the questions that still revolve around the case. Lost Women of Highway 20 comes to ID and Max on the 5th. It's a docuseries that analyzes the time period between the late 1970s and early 90s where several young women vanished, were assaulted, or murdered along Highway 20. Escaping Twin Flames comes to Netflix on the 8th. This 3-part docuseries explores the world of Twin Flames universe, which was a love cult run by Shalea and Jeff Devine. Prime actually released a doc about this last month, so I'll be interested to see how it compares. Let me know which one of these you guys are going to watch first.
This is the murder of James Bulger, one of the most heartbreaking true crime cases ever. This is James Bulger, and he was a 2-year-old toddler living in Liverpool, England with his parents. And on February 12th, 1993, he was abducted from a shopping mall in Bootle, Merseyside. His father briefly let go of his hand while they were at the mall, and John Venables and Robert Thompson, who were both 10 years old at the time, approached James and lured him away. The abduction was caught on security cameras right here, and the footage showed the 2 boys leading James away. And after abducting James, John Venables and Robert Thompson took him on a harrowing journey through various locations in Liverpool, during which they subjected him to severe physical and emotional abuse. And you won't believe what these 2 10-year-olds did to this 2-year-old boy. They took James to train tracks where they threw blue paint into his eyes, kicked him, stomped on him, threw bricks and stones at him. They placed batteries in his mouth and may have inserted them into his anus, although none were found there. They dropped a 22-pound fish plate on his head. They hit him in the head with a metal bar countless times, which caused 10 skull fractures. James Bulger suffered so many injuries, 42 in total, that none could be identified as the fatal blow. Thompson and Venables then laid James across the railroad tracks and weighted his head down with rubble, hoping that a train would hit him and his death would be ruled as an accident. After that, they left the scene, and James Bulger's body was then cut in half by the train. James's severed body was discovered by a group of children 2 days later, and the forensics testified that James Bulger died before he was struck by the train. John Venables and Robert Thompson were charged with the abduction, torture, and murder of James Bulger. The case received widespread media attention and was deeply emotional and a controversial trial. The boys were found guilty of the charges, and they were initially sentenced to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, which allowed them to be held in custody for as long as necessary. They were sent to separate secure juvenile facilities but were eventually released on lifelong parole as young adults. The James Bulger case remains one of the most distressing and tragic true crime stories. Every time I come across this case, it just never sits right with me. I can never understand how these 2 10-year-old boys could just take a 2-year-old boy away from his parents and then proceed to brutally torture him and kill him. This case is just sickening, and let me know your thoughts on it. This is the Baby Brianna case, one of the most horrendous cases ever explained. The Baby Brianna case is one of the most gut-turning cases you will ever hear about. Baby Brianna wouldn't live past 5 months old thanks to her mother, father, and uncle. On July 19, 2002, Stephanie Lopez, baby Brianna's mother, made a 911 call stating that her 5-month-old baby wasn't breathing. They then rushed baby Brianna to the hospital where they were unsuccessful at trying to bring her back, and she was pronounced dead. And once the autopsy was made public, the residents of the New Mexico town understood this just wasn't a terrible accident, but instead intentional. The autopsy revealed that baby Brianna endured more physical beatings than any human should have to experience in their lifetime, and she was only 5 months old. It was announced and ruled that baby Brianna died from craniocerebral injuries. She had visible bruisings and scabbing all over her forehead and head. Along with the scabbing and bruising, baby Brianna also had 2 skull fractures that were several days old. Baby Brianna also had signs of human bite marks, not just a few human bite marks, multiple, as in 15. She had 2 rib fractures that were 2 weeks old. She had been violently shaken at least twice in her lifetime due to her optical nerves being filled with new and old blood. She suffered bucket handle fractures caused by her legs and arms being violently forced, yanked, or pulled in different directions, and even out of their socket. Along with these fractures and head injuries, baby Brianna also had injuries consisting with sexual assault. According to baby Brianna's mother, Stephanie Lopez, and the father, Andrew Walters, the night of July 18th went something like this, and this was the last night baby Brianna was alive. Andrew got off work and went home to play video games. He played video games and drank beer with some other family members until 12:30 a.m. and he went to bed. He then said Stephanie got up around 7 a.m. and found Brianna unresponsive, prompting them to call 911. However, after more questioning, Andrew started to crack in his interrogation and suddenly he revealed the truth. Andrew admitted to biting his 5-month-old daughter and was able to identify the bite marks that he made. He stated that he was playing a little roughly with baby Brianna. He also mentioned that he and baby Brianna's uncle, Steven Lopez, were throwing baby Brianna up in the air and not catching her, letting her hit the ground extremely hard. They even threw her up at the ceiling, smacking her head against it. Steven Lopez, baby Brianna's uncle, admitted to drinking several beers that night. He stated he didn't remember starting sexual activity with his 5-month-old niece, but he said he stopped himself from committing a sex act because he knew it was wrong. These fatal injuries are what cost baby Brianna her life at just 5 months old. Andrew Walters, baby Brianna's father, was sentenced to 57 years in prison. Steven Lopez, baby Brianna's uncle, was sentenced to 51 years in prison. And lastly, Stephanie Lopez, baby Brianna's mother, was sentenced to 27 years in prison. However, due to good behavior, she was released on parole early, which is just insane. Nobody that does something this horrific should ever get out of prison or stay alive. This case really rubs me the wrong way because baby Brianna was only 5 months old, not even experiencing 1 year of life. This is one of those cases where after you read it and research it, your day just feels weird. I hope these parents burn in hell, and may baby Brianna rest in peace.
My top 3 favorite traps from Saw X. Number 3 is going to the eye suction trap. I find it so interesting that this trap is a daydream, and I think it's really interesting that John imagines the victim not surviving the trap. Like, he plans out the whole thing, all of the metaphors and all of the references to his crimes, and envisions him not making it out alive. It's also just a very creative and very visually interesting trap. I also liked how in the scenes before it, when we see John's MRI, he has the spots on his eyes right where the goggles are going to be in the next trap. Bloodboarding is going to have to be number 2. I love the idea of John Kramer being in his own trap. I actually predicted it for this movie. It's very creative, it visually looks really good, and it's insane that somebody who's completely innocent, a child, ended up here. And my number 1 favorite from this movie by a landslide is the bone marrow trap. Having to cut off your own leg with a wire saw and then vacuum out your own bone marrow is insane. Every time I took someone to see this movie, I watched their face during this trap. It was crazy every time.
This is the tragic and sick case of Gabriel Fernandez, and this is a massive trigger warning. This is 8-year-old Gabriel Fernandez, who was born and raised in Palmdale, California. And he was abused and tortured over a period of months by his own mother and her boyfriend. Gabriel lived with his grandparents until 2012 when his mother, Pearl Fernandez, regained custody of him despite concerns for his well-being from the family. And throughout his 8-month stay in the household of his mother, Pearl, and her boyfriend, he was systematically tortured and abused. The abuse included regular physical beatings causing broken bones. He was also being forced to eat cat litter and feces, his own vomit, and spoiled or expired foods. He was being burned with cigarettes and heated spoons, being shot with BB guns in various areas of his body, including the face and his groin. They also pepper sprayed him, forced him to wear women's clothing, and had him sleep bounded and gagged in a small cupboard. His teeth were also knocked out with a baseball bat. And according to Gabriel's siblings, when Gabriel's mother and her boyfriend were abusing him, they would just laugh about it. Prosecutors said that Gabriel's mother and boyfriend were motivated to abuse him because they believed he was gay. On May 22, 2013, Pearl Fernandez called 911 reporting that her child Gabriel was not breathing. Gabriel was fatally beaten by his mother and her boyfriend after failing to clean up his toys. When first responders arrived, they found him on the ground naked with several injuries. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital where doctors declared him brain dead. He died 2 days later on May 24, 2013 at the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. He died at just the young age of 8 years old, and the official autopsy declared he died from blunt force trauma that coincided with neglect and malnutrition. Gabriel's mother was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and her boyfriend was sentenced to death. This is definitely one of the most sickening cases you would ever hear about or read about. I can't imagine the pain and trauma Gabriel Fernandez was going through while being tortured by his mother and her boyfriend. And this was just complete abuse. They were treating Gabriel like he wasn't even human. I wish the mother got the death penalty too, but life in prison is not good either. But rest in peace to Gabriel Fernandez, and this case is absolutely sickening.
That man is crazy. Look what he's going to do. He wanted to be caught on video munching on a jellyfish, but it didn't go as planned. Obviously, it's very stupid what he's doing, because he was sure the jellyfish was going to sting him. Some of them are pretty, but they can even be deadly, so you have to be careful. This one wanted to play with the jellyfish too, and since he wanted to be filmed, here's the result. What he did was really stupid, because you should never carry a jellyfish in your arms. He tried to jump into the water to ease the pain, but that only made it worse. And now look at this man who almost lost his life stupidly. It's really frightening. Imagine being in his shoes, sleeping peacefully when all of a sudden a car runs into you. Be very careful when you're outside.
This question was sent in by a viewer, and it's something. Should women be allowed to drive?
What?
That's something I've actually never thought about, because I always just assumed they should be allowed to. I think Lily should answer this first. She is the token woman.
The token woman?
Yeah.
Lily, should women be allowed to drive?
Absolutely. They should.
Oof. Well, I actually didn't finish the question.
There's more to it?
There's a line underneath it. It was, should women be allowed to drive a dagger into the backs of men?
No, of course not. Immediately no. What?
Wait, hold on.
No, you would. I mean, you.
No,
would
never.
But she.
So Lily wants to drive daggers into the backs of men?
That's what I heard.
Oh my goodness!
Breaking news, a green ooze could be seen coming from the sewer system in New York. Here's a look at some of the video. A fluorescent green liquid was seen oozing from the manholes and sewers in New York City streets and sidewalks. Bystanders said it looked like something straight out of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Some have labeled this a, quote, mystery liquid. They said, however, this isn't the first time this has occurred, that it happened again back in March. However, the National Park Service says this is called, quote, dye tracing. It is used to help scientists visualize how water moves from one place to another. You can even get these dye drops on Amazon. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
Chinese water torture, also known as the dripping machine, is recognized for its psychological impact rather than physical harm. It's a form of torture that consists of a continuous and methodical dripping of water onto a person's forehead or other sensitive areas. The intent behind this method is to create a profound sense of apprehension, distress, and mental decline in the individual. This technique employs the unpredictability of the water droplet's timing to amplify the victim's anxiety. The irregular pattern prevents the person from getting accustomed to the sensation, which can be quite disconcerting. The anticipation of each drop can disrupt the individual's concentration and prevent rest, leading to extreme stress and mental fatigue. Used over prolonged periods, this method could lead to serious and enduring psychological effects. Some describe the drip sensation as evolving over time from an innocuous cold touch to what feels like a relentless pounding, as if the water drops turn into blows from a hammer against the skin.
This girl was kept in a box and used as a sex slave for 7 years. 20-year-old Colleen Stan is an American woman who was kidnapped and held as a sex slave by Cameron and Janice Hooker in their California home for over 7 years between 1977 and 1984. Her case has received international fame and has been a subject of many books, films, and television series. On May 19, 1977, Colleen Stan was hitchhiking from her home in Eugene, Oregon, to a friend's home in Northern California where she was heading to a birthday party. Cameron Hooker kidnapped 20-year-old Colleen after picking her up. Colleen said she was a very experienced hitchhiker and had allowed 2 rides to go past her before accepting the ride with Cameron Hooker. Colleen said she felt confident climbing into the blue van because Hooker's wife Janice and their baby were in the car. They then stopped at a gas station along the way and Colleen went to use the restroom. And she said a voice told her to run out and jump out the window and never look back, but she never did, which she definitely regrets. When they left, they got on the highway and Cameron Hooker pulled over on the side of the road and put a knife to Colleen's throat, all the way until they got to an isolated area. She was then locked in a wooden box that was designed to prevent light, sound, and fresh air entering. After this, Colleen was tortured and kept locked in the box for 23 hours a day until she was given a contract and forced to sign herself into slavery for life in January 1978. Her kidnapper also said that they were being watched by a powerful organization called the Company, and if she ever tried to escape, they would torture her and harm her family. Colleen then became a slave and her new name was Kay, and she was forced to call Cameron master. Cameron then started raping Colleen, and it was mostly consisting of oral rape. Cameron reportedly didn't want to have normal sex with Colleen because he considered that to breach his agreement with his wife. Instead, he raped her with objects. To avoid painful punishments, Colleen tried to comply with Cameron's commandments, which later led to her being allowed to go out to jog and work in the yard, and even help him with bigger stuff like an underground dungeon for more slaves. Even with an open door, neighbors, and a telephone, she never made an attempt to escape because her fear of the Company kept her from seeking help. Additionally, Stan was also allowed to visit her family by herself in 1981, but did not reveal her situation due to her fear of the possible consequences from the Company. Her family thought she was involved in some sort of cult, and they did not want to pressure her to stay in fear that she would stay away forever. The next day, Colleen returned for a second visit with Cameron posing as her boyfriend. Cameron feared that he had given his slave too much freedom and took her back to his home, where he locked her in the wooden box under his waterbed. She remained in the box 23 hours a day for the next 3 years. Colleen would go to the bathroom using a bedpan which she positioned under herself with her feet. Once Cameron's children had gone to bed, he would take Colleen out of the box and feed her and torture her. Colleen was not allowed to make any noise and she had to stay still for 23 hours a day in the complete dark, with little to no air to breathe. In the summer, the box would get over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. In 1983, Colleen was allowed to get a job as a maid at a hotel, and Cameron wanted her to become his second wife, which was a turning point for Janice, who is his wife. And in August 1984, Janice began struggling with herself and went to Colleen. She then told her that Cameron was not part of the Company and the Company wasn't even real. Janice then helped Colleen escape to a bus station where they had Colleen's parents help bring her home. Colleen Stan is still alive today and she experiences PTSD and has extreme back and shoulder injuries, which is from being trapped in a small box for 7 years straight. This case is extremely gut-turning, and could you ever imagine this happening to you? Luckily, Cameron Hooker was found guilty of kidnapping and sexual assault and was sentenced to 104 years in prison.
My uncle's girlfriend was a witch and she was hexing the whole family.
Really?
Yeah. They had to break into her house.
What?
Yeah, so my family has a family business. They're experiencing like the worst year of like losing so much money. And I have an uncle who he's just like super machista. His girlfriend would just make him into a bitch. Things he would never do. And this dude like straight ranchero. This guy would never touch a dish. Now all of a sudden he's doing all these things that, you know, you're supposed to do, but like he would never do. And people are like, yo, how did he switch up this hard, this quick? And then so there was already rumors that she was stealing from the business, to a point where my family, they decided to go break into their house and see if they have our stuff, because every time they're around, things go missing. So they asked my cousins, can you two break into this house and see what you find? And they're looking through the house. They decided to go in the attic. It's all fucking up right now.
Shit.
And when they go in the attic, they find different types of witch stuff and pictures of everybody in the family.
I just got chills all over my body, bro. I was about to
like, my
say
shit's
that.
crazy.
You know what
right now.
you know what that reminded me of? Hereditary.
Yeah.
Whenever they find out that the neighbor or whatever is the witch. So what ended up happening after that?
A lot of negative. A lot of his kids passed away. There's a lot of car accidents. She's gone now.
That's scary, man.
Yeah.
That's
I don't mess with that.
Wouldn't wish that on anybody.
I'm reconsidering our friendship right now. I don't even know if I should be hanging
Nah,
out with you right
trust,
now,
like-
bro.
Like my family now, every month they're doing limpias.
The Mr. Krabs surveillance theory. There's a theory how Mr. Krabs, you know how he loves money?
Yeah.
And he would do anything for money, right?
Yeah.
Because in one episode, he has a room and Squidward and SpongeBob, they accidentally find it. What? And in the room, there's a whole bunch of like screens. And they're surveilling everybody. And then one of them is like in Sandy's house while she's brushing her teeth and shit.
Oh, no, I don't remember that.
You don't remember that? So Mr. Krabs just has bare cameras, and then he has hella like screens in this room surveilling all of Bikini Bottom. You know the theory how they're radioactive and shit? Theory goes that Mr. Krabs, since he loves money, he took money to surveil everybody in Bikini Bottom and kind of sell them out to whoever's like studying them.
Have you guys heard of the satanic Oreo theory? We all know and love Oreos, right? But after this, you might not want to eat them anymore. If you look at an Oreo cookie, you notice that there's symbols on top of every little cookie. The symbol looks closely related to the double-cross eternal symbol. Now, from what we know, they supposedly put symbols in everything, including our cartoons, movies, and even on our food, to pay tribute to Satan, right? Now, the double-cross eternal symbol represents the Leviathan symbol, which is a curse, a spell. Now, some people believe that they place these symbols on the food you eat to curse you, or shall I say, put a piece of Satan inside of you. You know sort of how in church you eat a piece of the bread, which means you're putting a piece of Jesus inside of you. He's becoming a part of you. By the way, before we continue this story, type amen in the comments to ward off any evil spirits that come off this video. The theory also states that the word Oreos originates from the ancient Greek and Egyptian term Aureus, which just happens to be the Egyptian serpent that people used to worship. And let's not talk about the super secret bunker that the Oreo company has built in Norway, where they claim to only be holding the formula to Oreo inside. Now, I don't know if this theory is true. I don't really think I believe it, but it is a wild one. What do you think? Is it real, or are people reaching?
A child is recording her mother in the kitchen when something downright creepy is caught on camera. Eliza Ortiz, who suggested the video, writes, "Absolutely terrifying. The mother had no clue that the video her daughter had taken would contain something that would chill her to the core. Her daughter was playing with her phone and ended up recording something straight out of a horror movie. Watch closely and you'll see it. This is what she caught."
¿Qué hace, mami?
Limpiando porque está bien lleno de polvo la casa. ¿Y tú ya hiciste lo que te mandé, hija?
Sí.
¿Ya viste que ya pusieron la tele?
No.
Para ponernos a ver películas y comiendo palomitas.
Sí.
Ya hasta que llegue tu mande.
Mami.
¿Eh? Ahorita quiero que me ayudes a recortar tu... Y ya en la otra casa ya vamos a comer. Ahorita que lleguemos allá ya vamos a comer. ¿Nos tomamos una foto, hija? Sí.
On June 26, 1977, in Bayside, Queens, Sal and Judy were sitting in their car in the early morning hours. I think it was around like 3 a.m. and they were shot with 3 gunshots. They both only suffered minor injuries and survived, but neither of them saw the attacker. However, witnesses did report seeing a tall, stocky man with dark hair fleeing the crime scene, as well as a blonde man with a mustache driving in the area. Police believed that the dark-haired man was the suspect and the blonde-haired man was a witness. And then on July 30th, 1977, just 2 days after the anniversary of the first shooting, David Berkowitz shot again, but this time it was in Brooklyn. Stacy and Robert were in his car, parked near a park, when a man walked up to the passenger side and began shooting. Stacy died at the hospital and Robert suffered non-life-threatening injuries. There were several witnesses to this specific shooting who were able to provide descriptions of the shooter to police. One of the witnesses actually described the man looked like he was wearing a wig, so this could account for why in the previous shooting when they saw a man with dark hair and then one with blonde hair, he could have been wearing a wig just to, obviously put on this disguise and not be recognized. Several witnesses claimed to have seen a man matching Berkowitz's description, wearing a wig, driving a yellow car without any headlights and speeding away from the crime scene. Police decided to investigate the owners of any yellow cars matching the description, and David Berkowitz's car was actually one of those.
The following is the terrifying story of the world's deepest hole. At the conclusion of this story, listen to the sounds that are described as the hell sounds that emanated from this very hole.
In the remote Kola Peninsula of Russia, there lies a dark and ominous pit known as the Kola Super Deep Borehole. For decades, it was a place of scientific curiosity, but as the years passed, tales of unsettling events began to circulate. One chilling story speaks of the night the drilling equipment reached a depth of 12 kilometers. The crew suddenly heard unearthly cries from the depths below. Terrifying, soul-wrenching screams that sent shivers down their spines. The men, overcome with fear, fled the site, leaving their equipment behind. Over time, the borehole developed an unsettling reputation. Locals reported strange lights flickering deep within the abyss. Some even claimed to have seen ghostly figures emerging from its depths, their hollow eyes staring into the souls of any who dared to look. But the most disturbing legend of all is the presence that dwells within the borehole. An ancient malevolence, they say, was awakened by the relentless drilling. It seeks out those who come too close, driving them to madness with whispered promises of power and torment. Visitors who venture near the borehole feel an overwhelming sense of dread, as if an unseen malevolent force is reaching into their minds, peeling away their sanity. In the heart of the earth, a dark entity awaits, hungry for the souls of those who dare to approach. Beware the Kola Super Deep Borehole, for once you hear its cries and glimpse its haunting lights, there may be no turning back from the darkness that lurks within.
Would you go to abandoned hospital?
I would, depending on how abandoned. Is it falling?
Oh, it's been abandoned for the past 36 years in Newark, New Jersey. It's closed up, so they have it super fenced, but you can still get in. People used to go in it. When they go in the hospital, they'd always hear footsteps above them, and they hear things drop. People say, "Oh, it might be homeless people." Or anything but the thing is, people have gone in and had things chase them.
Really?
I don't think a homeless person is going to chase you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then people have gone in there and gone missing. That's why they closed it, because people go in there and go missing.
Really?
They go in with their friends. One person gets left behind. They don't come out. They go in and search for the body. Can't find the body. It's over.
Whoever your first was, your first blood. No. There's a common phenomena. Almost every person that has killed somebody has the exact same dream. That's so and the dream is the person they killed leaning over them in their sleep. So you're just sleeping in your bed and they have a dream of the person that they killed looking over them. The crazy thing is, almost every person that has killed somebody has had that dream, and if not, they might be lying. They might have not wanted to speak about it.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's people that deny it. They say no, it's because of this and this. But
is the dream how it's that person comes up to him bro, why'd you do it? Like a guilty type of dream?
I think so.
It should be.
Yeah.